First story. My entitled son got a job, neglecting his free babysitting duty for his half-sisters. So I demanded he quit his job, saying he isn't competent for the job. He refused, so I forced him to pay for a babysitter and rent to live in my house. Then my husband kicked him out. Instead of begging me and apologizing for his attitude, he abandoned me and went NC. I 38F live with my husband 42M, our 2 young daughters 5 and 7, and my son 18M from a previous relationship. He's currently attending community college and living at home rent-free. From the outside, this might sound like a pretty standard setup, but things have been building up for a while now, and it all kind of exploded recently over something that I don't think should have been such a big deal. But maybe I'm wrong. For the past year or so, my son has been helping with his half-sisters after school. It wasn't exactly a formal arrangement, but it became the norm. He'd pick them up, help with snacks, and hang out with them until I got home around 8 p.m. My husband works as a commercial pilot and is gone most weeks, so it's usually just me and the kids. We don't have extended family nearby, and paid childcare was something we discussed, but ultimately decided against because we were trying to cut costs where possible. I thought it was understood that this was how things worked in our house. My son had no expenses, no rent, utilities, food, or anything. His only financial responsibilities were personal: games, clothes, going out, etc. In my mind, the least he could do was help with his sisters during the few hours I wasn't around. It was never something I forced on him, but we had conversations about pulling your weight and being part of the household, and he always nodded along, so I assumed we were on the same page. Turns out, we were not. Last week, I found out my son had got a job. I didn't hear it from him. I overheard him on the phone with a friend talking about his shift. When I asked him what he was talking about, he told me, pretty casually, that he'd started working at a local electronics store and that his friend had helped him get in. I was floored. I asked him why he didn't think to tell me, and he just shrugged and said it all happened quickly. But that's not the issue. The problem is his shift runs from 2:30 to 9, which means he's not around to watch the girls anymore, and he knew this. He knows my work schedule hasn't changed. He knows I have no backup. And yet, he went ahead and accepted a job that directly impacted the rest of the household. When I brought this up, he got defensive immediately. He said, and I quote, "It's not my job to babysit your kids." That hit me hard. I reminded him they're his sisters, not just my kids, and that he was helping out as part of our household. He said he understood that, but also added that he's not a free nanny, and that watching them every day was never supposed to be permanent. He told me he needed the money and was tired of being treated like a live-in babysitter. I pointed out that he lives here for free, and his response was basically, "Exactly. I'm trying to not do that anymore." What really got me angry, though what this post is actually about, is how casually he dropped all this like it wasn't going to affect anybody else. He knows I don't have anyone to fill in for him. He knows how tight things are. I asked him how he expected me to cover those hours now, and his only suggestion was to figure out daycare or pay someone. "We've already been over this. I can't afford daycare." I reminded him of that, and he just said, "Then maybe your husband should be the one to figure it out, not me." Since then, there's been a general coldness from him, especially when it comes to his sisters. He's not mean to them, but he definitely doesn't go out of his way to engage either. He used to play with them or watch cartoons together. Lately, he stays in his room unless I ask for help, and even then it's with a heavy sigh and an eye roll. I've brought this up with my husband, and we've both had separate conversations with him. My husband, to his credit, tries to be involved, but he's gone more often than not. The last time he was home, he tried to talk to my son about stepping up more and respecting the rules of the house. My son told him flat out, "You're not my dad." That went over about as well as you'd expect. Since then, the tension has been building, and now this job situation has just made it all boil over. I told my son this was completely inconsiderate. He said it's not fair to expect him to give up his chance at work, just so I don't have to hire a babysitter. I told him I didn't think he was ready for a job in college. I've seen how disorganized he can be. He's the type to forget appointments, leave assignments to the last minute, and sleep until noon if no one wakes him. I told him flat out, "You're not even competent enough to manage your own schedule. What makes you think you can balance school and a job?" That clearly pissed him off. He said I was just trying to keep him dependent, and that I never give him credit for anything. I told him I give him plenty of credit when he earns it. But he hasn't. He's never held a real job. He's not reliable. And now he's created a massive hole in our schedule, just to prove a point. He said he's not quitting. End of discussion. When I said we'd have to seriously discuss him contributing to the cost of a babysitter then, since his decision directly impacts us, he actually laughed and said, "So now I have to pay someone to watch your kids because you don't want to." I told him I'd had enough of the disrespect. He told me he's had enough of being treated like a fallback plan. And now, we're barely speaking. My husband got home last night, and I filled him in on everything. He was furious. Said our son clearly has no respect for us, and that he's acting like we owe him something. He said if our son wants to live like an adult and make decisions behind our backs, then maybe it's time he started paying rent like one. We haven't told him that yet, but I'm strongly considering it. I just don't understand how he thinks it's okay to completely change the dynamic of our home without even telling us. After that conversation, things have been tense. He leaves early in the afternoon and doesn't come home until close to 10. He eats in his room and barely says 2 words to anyone. The girls keep asking why their brother doesn't play with them anymore, and I don't even know what to tell them. I just say he's busy with school and work. My husband thinks I'm being too soft about it. He said if this were his son, he would have already told him to either contribute or move out. I've tried to remind him that my son is still just 18, still figuring things out. But the truth is, I feel like I'm constantly stuck between trying to parent him and feeling like he's turned into a stranger in my own home. Yesterday, I tried to have another calm talk. I told him that I wasn't trying to ruin his independence, but I needed to understand what his plan was. He said, "My plan is to work, go to school, and stop being treated like a babysitter." Then he said that if I was struggling for childcare, that wasn't his fault, and I shouldn't expect him to pick up the slack for decisions I made before he was even born. That one hurt. I reminded him that while yes, he didn't choose to have siblings, he does live under this roof, and part of living with family means helping each other. I told him that I had been relying on him because he's capable and because I thought we had an understanding. He said, "No, you decided I was responsible for them and never asked if I was okay with it." He's not completely wrong, but the way he talks to me lately is just dripping with resentment. I told him I wouldn't have expected him to help so much if he wasn't living here rent-free, eating our food, and using our utilities. He told me that's not payment for being a parent, and that if I wanted to make things transactional, then fine, he'll pay rent once he can afford it. But he's not giving up his job, and he's not babysitting anymore. That shut me up for a second, because I realized he actually meant it. He's been serious about saving money. I checked his school portal, and he's been applying for scholarships and even looking into transferring after his first year. I guess I should be proud, but instead, I feel blindsided. He never shared any of this with me. Every step towards independence feels like he's cutting me out. Later that evening, my husband brought it up again, this time more firmly. He said, "He's an adult now. Either he starts paying rent, or he finds somewhere else to live." I told him that was too harsh, especially since my son's just starting to find his footing. But my husband's argument was that we're enabling this behavior by letting him act like a roommate who doesn't contribute. We started arguing about it ourselves. He said I keep making excuses for my son's attitude because I feel guilty about raising him mostly on my own for years. That really stung, because it's partly true. For a long time, it was just me and my son. I worked long hours, sometimes nights, and he got used to being home alone or helping out more than he should have at that age. He's always been mature for his age, but over the last year or two, it's like that maturity turned into bitterness. I think he sees my new family as something he's not part of. He and my husband never really bonded. My husband tries, but my son keeps his distance. When he's home, he avoids family dinners and just sits on his phone. I thought that maybe, over time, they'd connect, but that never happened. A few months ago, we had another issue. My husband asked my son to mow the lawn before a weekend trip. My son said he would, but didn't. My husband ended up doing it himself, and when he came inside, he said, "I'm done treating him like a guest." I told him not to start something, and we dropped it, but the tension's been there ever since. Now this job has just reopened all those old wounds. I did mention the babysitter idea again, trying to be practical about it. I told my son, "Fine, if you don't want to babysit, then you'll need to help cover the cost for someone who can." He immediately shot that down and said, "That's your and stepdad's problem, not mine. I'm not responsible for the kids you chose to have." I told him I was disappointed in how cold he's become. He said he's been feeling this way for a long time, that I only notice him when I need something, and that every time he tries to do something for himself, I tear him down. That stopped me for a second because I've said some harsh things lately. I've told him he's not ready for adult life, that he's impulsive, that he's going to fail if he doesn't think things through. I thought I was being realistic, but maybe it all came off as me not believing in him. But at the same time, I can't shake the frustration. It's easy for him to say I'm using him, but I've never asked him to do anything more than watch his sisters a few hours a day while living here rent-free. He's acting like that's some horrible burden. My sister got wind of this whole thing because my son vented to my niece, and my niece told her. My sister called me last night and said, "You're wrong on this one. He's 18. He's trying to move forward. Let him." She said I'm acting like his independence is an insult instead of what it should be, a good thing. She also said I need to stop treating him like a built-in babysitter. That phrase really irritated me because that's not how I see it. I don't think it's unreasonable for a young adult living at home to help with the family. That's what I did when I was his age. My parents didn't even ask, it was just expected. Still, hearing it from her and seeing how defensive my son is has made me wonder if maybe I handled this all wrong. Maybe I've been so focused on keeping things running smoothly that I stopped noticing how trapped he feels here. I don't know. I still think it's inconsiderate to make decisions that throw the rest of the household off balance. We all depend on each other, and it feels like he just decided his own convenience was more important. But at the same time, I can't deny that he's technically right. He's an adult now, and I can't force him to stay home every day because I need the help. Now my husband wants to sit him down for a family meeting to lay down new house rules, things like curfews, financial contributions, or finding alternative childcare solutions. But I feel like that's just going to push him further away. I'm stuck between thinking he's being selfish and realizing that maybe he's just done being treated like a kid. So I guess that's where I'm at. My son got a job without telling me, and now we're left without childcare. I feel disrespected, but everyone around me is saying I'm the one who needs to let go and adjust. AITA. Comments. Comment 1. YTA. Massively. You basically raised your son to believe that helping with his sisters was just part of his existence, not a choice. That's messed up. And now that he's finally trying to build a life for himself, you're punishing him for it. You told him he's not competent enough to work and go to school. Are you serious? That's straight up manipulative. You didn't say that because you believe it, you said it because you wanted to control him. And he saw through it, which is why he's pulling away. Good for him, honestly. What really pisses me off is how you keep saying he lives rent-free, like that justifies everything. Newsflash, he's your kid. That's normal. Helping out occasionally? Sure. But being your full-time unpaid babysitter 5 days a week while you act like it's his duty. That's abuse, not parenting. And your husband talking about respect while not actually being present. GTFO. The dude is gone most of the time and still feels entitled to discipline someone else's son. No wonder your kid has no relationship with him. You're not upset about the job. You're upset your free labor grew a spine. And now you're threatening rent and ultimatums like that's going to rebuild trust. No, you're just pushing him away faster. Let me say it plainly. You're not entitled to your adult son's time, energy, or emotional labor. You don't want to pay for a babysitter. Then you and your actual partner need to figure that out. Stop dumping the cost of your choices onto a teenager who's already spent years raising kids he didn't create. Grow up. Comment 2. Okay, unpopular opinion here. But OP isn't the arsehole y'all are making her out to be. She's a working mom with 2 small kids and an absentee husband who expects her to hold the house together and be the emotional punching bag for her teenage son. And now the one support she had the son is basically saying, not my problem. Like, yeah, ideally she'd be able to afford childcare. But this isn't some rich suburban fantasy. She's working 3/8 shifts, which screams either retail, healthcare, or some kind of support work. That's not hire a nanny money. So yeah, maybe expecting her 18-year-old to pitch in for a few hours a day while living for free isn't unreasonable. That said, OP, your delivery is awful. You blew your own leg off by calling him not competent enough to work. That was petty. And saying his job was nothing special just because it messed with your routine. You're tanking your credibility. He's trying to get out from under the household he clearly doesn't feel at home in. This isn't just about a job. This is about years of quiet resentment bubbling up. You're all living in a pressure cooker, and this is the first real steam release. So no, I don't think you're wrong to feel hurt. But if you want to fix it, you need to stop fighting for control and start fighting for understanding. Otherwise, he's going to be gone the second he saves up enough, and he won't look back. Update. So, it's been a rough few days. I wasn't planning on updating, But the amount of comments and the tone of many kind of forced me to sit with everything. And, frankly, I think a lot of people misunderstood the situation, or at least only saw one part of it. First off, I want to clarify something important. This was never about money. My husband and I make enough. We're not wealthy, but we're not living paycheck to paycheck either. Some of you jumped to the conclusion that I was using my son as a free babysitter because we couldn't afford childcare. That's not true. The real reason we never went forward with a professional babysitter is because my daughters don't want one. They've struggled since COVID, especially my youngest, and they have a hard time being alone with people they don't know. We tried hiring someone once, a very nice woman, but my youngest ended up having a panic attack. Ever since then, we've relied on people they're comfortable with, which, until now, meant their older brother. Not because he was playing dad, not because I forced him to do crafts and bedtime routines, but simply because he was home. Let me be clear. My son was not cooking meals or giving baths. He wasn't raising them. Most days he'd be on his laptop doing homework or playing games while they watched cartoons or colored at the table. It was just having someone else in the house, a familiar person, that made the girls feel safe. I never once expected him to do anything more than be there. So for the people saying I've been treating him like the third parent, no, I haven't. That being said, yes, I am upset. I'm upset because he made a decision that completely upended our routine without giving me a heads up. That's what this was really about. Respect. Communication. When you live in someone's house, especially as a legal adult, you don't make choices that impact the whole household without saying a word. I would have never told him not to get a job, but I expected to be consulted first. So yes, I absolutely believe he should have asked before accepting it. Anyway, after the original incident, my husband came home from his rotation and agreed we needed to sit down. He called a family meeting. We all sat down, me, my husband, and my son, and the girls were in their room. I went into it calm. I told my son I was proud of him for working and proud of him for going to school, but that this job was now impacting other people. I tried explaining that this wasn't just about logistics, but about how he handled it alone, without any discussion. He immediately got defensive. He said he didn't owe us an explanation. Said I only care when it affects my schedule. My husband stepped in and tried to level with him, but things got heated quickly. My husband said, "If you want to live like an adult, then you need to start acting like one, which includes paying rent or contributing something." My son stood up and said, "If you're going to start charging me to live here, then I'll leave. It's that simple." I thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. That night, they had a separate argument. I wasn't in the room. I only know what was said because my son told me the next day and because my husband didn't deny it. Apparently, my husband told him something along the lines of, "You've been disrespectful from day one. Maybe it's time you moved on and learned how the world works." My son said, "Thanks for the push. I'm gone." He grabbed a duffel bag and left within the hour. He's now staying with my sister. I had no idea she'd offered him a place, but she says he reached out weeks ago when things first got tense, and she told him her door was always open. I'm not mad at her, but I'm not thrilled either. She's never been in my shoes. She's single, no kids. She keeps saying, "He's 18, let him be." But she's not the one juggling school pickups and emotional meltdowns at 7 p.m. while working split shifts. My son's job just gave him more hours. He's now working closer to 30 a week. He told me via text that he'll be covering his own expenses from now on and doesn't want anything from us. He said he still plans to do school full-time and is staying with my sister until he gets on his feet. For those saying I'm trying to control him, I'm not. But he does still live under our roof. He was part of a household. And I believe that means communicating decisions that impact others. I'm not proud of everything I said. I probably did come off harsh. I was angry and frustrated and scared of losing control over a situation I had no backup for. But for those of you painting me like some evil mom trying to stunt her son's growth, no. That's not it. I'm proud of him in 100 ways. He's smart, driven, and stronger than I was at that age. But I'm not proud of how he handled this. Of how he shut us out, went behind our backs, and then walked out like none of it mattered. Right now, I don't know what happens next. My husband wants to draw boundaries. If my son wants to return, he needs to sit down and agree to basic rules of communication and mutual respect. I agree in theory, but I also miss my kid. I don't want to lose him over this. But I also don't want him thinking that becoming an adult means doing whatever you want, no matter who it hurts. This isn't the ending I wanted, but it's where we are. Comments. Comment 1. Girl, I'm going to say this flat out. Your husband is the problem. And your refusal to protect your son from him is how you lost the boy. You've been disrespectful from day one. From what day? When he was 5 and you introduced a new man into his life who he never asked for. Your son didn't get a say in having siblings. He didn't get a say in having a new dad. And from your own words, it sounds like your husband never even tried to actually build a relationship with him. He just expected obedience. You allowed that dynamic to sit and rot for years. Your son didn't walk away over a job. He walked away because the only time you paid attention to him was when he disrupted the family schedule. And instead of listening, you questioned his competence and dismissed his efforts. Now he's gone, and you're writing updates trying to justify it with, "I'm proud of him, but not this one thing." Yeah, well, this one thing is the moment he decided he's done being a background character in your new family. Good luck getting him back if you don't do some serious reflection and fast. Comment 2. You need to stop spiraling about being the bad guy and start thinking about where to go from here. You're not the devil, but you did mishandle this badly. You had a house system running smoothly until the piece holding it together decided to step away. You can either cry about the missing piece or re-engineer the system. Here's what you need. Childcare plan that doesn't depend on emotional blackmail. Boundaries for all adults in the house, including your husband, who crossed a massive line. A serious apology to your son, not for asking him to help in the past, but for making him feel like he didn't matter when he finally asserted his needs. He's not just trying to be independent. He is independent now. Your role is shifting from manager to supporter, and the sooner you adapt, the sooner you might get him back in your life in a meaningful way. Otherwise, you're going to be one of those moms wondering why their kid never visits, and the answer will be this post. Comment 3. YTA. Full stop. You're not some struggling mom trying her best. You're a control freak who can't stand that your kid finally stopped orbiting around you. You didn't lose childcare. You lost free labor. That's what this tantrum is really about. You've treated him like your backup plan, when, in reality, he's been your unpaid safety net since he was old enough to hold a phone. You built your entire schedule around him being available, never once asking if he wanted to be. And the second he made a decision without your approval, you completely lost it. You told him he's not competent enough to work and go to school. What kind of garbage thing is that to say to your own kid? He's doing everything right, school, job, trying to be independent, and you still found a way to tear him down. Because it didn't fit your comfort zone. And your husband? Absolute joke. He disappears for weeks, then shows up long enough to puff his chest and tell your son to know his place. The place he's talking about is somewhere beneath him, and you let it happen. You let that man talk to your kid like that. No wonder the boy packed his bag. If I were him, I'd be gone too. Stop hiding behind, "It's not about money," or "the girls are uncomfortable with a sitter." Everything you wrote screams excuses. The truth is you expect your adult son to sacrifice his own life to make yours easier. And when he refused, you punished him emotionally. You say you're proud of him, in many ways, but not this one. No, you don't get to pick and choose the parts of adulthood you like. You either respect him as an adult or you don't. Right now, you don't. He doesn't owe you babysitting. He doesn't owe your husband respect he hasn't earned. He doesn't owe you permission to live his life. What you owe him is an apology, a real one, for being the reason he had to move out just to breathe. You want advice. Let go of the illusion that you're the victim here. You created the mess. You lost his trust. And unless you change your entire approach, you'll lose him for good. Second story. My boyfriend destroyed my grandma's jewelry box because I didn't get my hair colored the way he wanted. I think it's my fault because I could have just done what he wanted me to do. Now I'm scared to leave because he will hurt my pregnant dog. My boyfriend and I have been together for a year and a half. There have been a few times when he's blown up at me over the smallest things. Usually, he gets angry and makes it everyone in the house's problem. When I finally stood up for myself, he hurt me in one of the most painful ways possible. I don't know if I should forgive him or if the blame is on me. My grandmother died of lung cancer when I was 12. She was the toughest and most hilarious little old lady, and I miss her every day. Everything my grandmother intended to give us after she passed was taken by one of her sisters before we could get to her house. By the time my mum was finally able to get there, very little remained. Among the few items left was a beautiful white jewelry box that could sit on a counter. My mother gave it to me after seeing how drawn I was to it. That jewelry box was the only thing I had left of my grandmother when I moved out of state to live with my dad as a teenager. It was one of the few things I refused to leave behind. A couple of days ago, I wanted to get my hair done, but was indecisive, so I asked my boyfriend what he thought. I gave him a couple of color choices I was considering: jet black or a random shade of red. He told me he preferred black over red. I took his thoughts into consideration, but ultimately decided to go with the red. As soon as he saw me earlier today after my appointment, he was furious, saying I never listened to him, and that he was so repulsed by me, he couldn't even sleep with me until I changed it. He called me several expletives. I decided to go lie down and rest before my shift that night. Ignoring him didn't diffuse the situation at all. He started grabbing everything that was mine from our shared bedroom and throwing it down the hallway. He kept saying I was in the way and told me to get up and sleep on the couch. He's done this several times before, and every time he waits until I break down and apologize before I'm allowed to move my things back into our room. This can last anywhere from a few hours to a few weeks. However long it lasts, he makes sure my life is a living hell the entire time, yelling at me, belittling me, and telling me what a terrible person I am. This time, I was over it. I was too exhausted to play his game, so I just lay in bed, trying to drown out the vile things spewing from his mouth. When he saw he wasn't getting a reaction, he started breaking things and tearing up my drawings. Before destroying each item, he kept saying all I had to do was get my things out of his room and get my ugly arse out. When I still refused, he grabbed my jewelry box and held it over his head. As soon as I realized what he was about to do, I became frantic. I started sobbing and begging him to stop. I was so loud that his mom heard me from her bedroom on the other side of the house and came to see what was going on. She tried to reason with him, but he was enraged. He just kept shouting, "Get the F out now." After about 30 seconds of chaos, he slammed my jewelry box onto the floor. I was speechless. I began to sob, but no sound came out. His mom looked at me and told me to go sleep in her room and lock the door. As soon as I left, I heard her unleashing on him. I am positive I heard her slap him hard. I just took my blanket and did as I was told. Eventually, I managed to fall asleep. When I woke up, both my boyfriend and his mom were gone. I didn't have time to question it because I had to go to work. I'm currently on my lunch break and still haven't heard from either of them. I guess I'll have to figure out what's going on when I get off tomorrow morning. I think it might be my fault he broke it, because all I had to do was get out of the room. My stubbornness destroyed one of my most treasured possessions. I feel like an idiot, and I don't even know if there's a way to repair it. I'm just so heartbroken, and I needed to vent. Comments. Comment 1. You know you're describing domestic abuse, right? Comment 2. And his mum knew it and beat the SHT out of him. Leave now. It's not safe for you. Comment 3. I really hope she beats his arse. Comment 4. Even though I do hope he got his arse beaten. This is probably one of the reasons he thinks beating is okay in the first place. OP. You are at least partially right. His mother had her first daughter at 14, and by the time she was 17, she had gained custody of her older sister's kids. She was the guardian for 6 kids before she could legally drink. She has told me some of the horrific things she did as punishment because she didn't know another way to raise kids. His mom and I have had conversations talking about what might be wrong with him neurologically. She always brings up how his personality drastically shifted after his scalp was torn off by a dog when he was 7. After the incident, he would screech at the top of his lungs when he didn't get what he wanted, especially when his older sister babysat him. She would get tired of the yelling and would lock him outside. They lived deep in the woods, nowhere near any other houses or active roads. He would run around the entire house, banging on the doors and windows until she broke and let him inside. If she didn't just give in, he would pull the AC units out of the windows and crawl in, only to terrorize her some more. I think there are several factors that contributed to who he became. He really needs to get some professional help. Comment 5. When his own mother tells him off because his behavior is that SHTTY, that should tell you something. It's not on you to placate him, and he doesn't get to allow you to do anything. Judgment NTA. Update. This is an update to a post I made a couple of days ago. After I got off my shift that morning, my boyfriend was sitting on the front porch waiting for me. As soon as I opened the door and got out, he approached me and kept telling me how sorry he was. I was still very angry and hurt, so I didn't say much. When I walked inside, he led me to our room. It was spotless, the cleanest I think I've ever seen it. He showed me that he had tried to put the jewelry box back together. I know he did his best, but there were pieces missing, and the glass from the doors was shattered. I just looked at him and said, "Thank you." I didn't complain or say anything else because I knew what would happen if I did. Apparently, though, I wasn't enthusiastic enough, because he got annoyed almost immediately. He started calling me ungrateful. I told him that he couldn't undo what he did, and that's when he became irate. His mum was at work, so I didn't really have any backup. But his little sister was home. After he started yelling, he grabbed my jewelry box again and took it outside, shouting that I was ungrateful and didn't deserve him. His 6-year-old little sister heard us yelling and followed me outside. We both watched as he threw the jewelry box onto the concrete, smashing it worse than before, and then picked up several pieces and put them in his pocket. I started crying again and fell to my knees beside the remnants. His little sister came over to comfort me and told me that she loves me more than she loves him, that her big brother was really mean. I told her that I loved her too, but she shouldn't say things like that, especially while he could still be listening. She nodded and helped me pick up the shards of wood and glass. I told him I wanted to leave. At first, he called my bluff and said, "Fine, leave then." But when I texted my dad that I needed him to come get me, and he realized what I'd done, he lost it. He started crying uncontrollably, took my phone, and texted my dad back pretending to be me, saying it was all a misunderstanding, that everything was okay, and that we'd worked it out. After that, he spent probably 4 hours talking to me, telling me he was going to be better, that he was sorry, but also pointing out all the things I do that are wrong or SHTTY. I think tonight was the first time I really looked at him and knew that this is going to be over. I don't know when or how yet, but I know this is not going to be the rest of my life. Comments. Comment 1. Girl, GTFO out of there. Call your dad from the bathroom if you have to, and tell him to come no matter what because your hopefully soon ex is abusive and controlling and broke your stuff. And he pretends to be you through text. Comment 2. And tell your dad to bring a friend or two. Comment 3. Absolutely. Like any bully, he will not stand up to someone who could take him on. This guy is dangerous. Comment 4. Serial killer level of dangerous. Sadly, I'm not exaggerating. Comment 5. With all due respect, what are you waiting for? OP. For a long time I would have said, because I love him. Now I'm just scared. My dog is very pregnant, and he's already threatened to hurt her if I do something. I don't want to leave her and her babies with him. Comment 5. Take your dog with you and find a rescue that can foster her until you can find accommodations. Save the dog and save yourself before it's too late. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.